I would say to ignore the prevalent messaging in the business literature and culture, which is to hack your time or become more productive, or manage your time, and instead focus on managing your energy. When I made that shift, my life changed dramatically. And we are walking around sort of almost critically exhausted. Many people are burned out. Many people are under so much overwhelm and stress. And the sort of tonic for all of that is to stop trying to overdo and overachieve and instead focus on what I need to do to plug the drains of the bucket of my energy.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Susie deVille. And Susie started her journey going to undergraduate and studying anthropology before going to getting a master's in entrepreneurship, and then got a job working in the publishing industry. Afterwards, went off to London and worked there for a period of time. Came back to the U.S. and started in the nonprofit area. Worked in the community center, and then had her son and took a break for a period of time. Went back in the workforce and got into real estate and brokerage and left leaving the nonprofit world to really focus on real estate full time and stayed that during a period of time until the crash hit, and had a bit of a life reset and or switch gears going more into the coaching framework and selling a business and writing a book and having a good time at it all. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Susie.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Excited to have you on. So I just gave just a quick overview to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack that a little bit and tell us a little bit about how your journey got started going to study anthropology as an undergraduate.
So I grew up in an entrepreneurial household, and I knew from a very early age that I wanted to have the sort of playfulness and autonomy that my father created for his enterprise. So that was kind of planted early and was always in the back of my mind. And when I went to UNC Chapel Hill, I took a variety of courses. I loved everything that I took, except for calculus and organic chemistry. But I loved all the humanities. And so when I started exploring anthropology, I knew immediately that was going to be it for me. It was a defining course of study, something I use every day. The discipline of having a holistic way of viewing and understanding anything that we're interested in. It could be an enterprise, it could be a cultural moment, it could be a human being. It's a wonderful way to train us to see and think and move in the world differently. So after I got my anthropology degree, I moved up to Boston and got into the world of publishing at that point and really stayed in publishing until I left London in 93 to come back to the mountains in North Carolina.
So now you did that, you came back to the mountains in North Carolina, and kind of where did you kind of enter the workforce, or where did your journey take you from there?
So I was really thinking about going back to school and getting a teaching certificate because I was intrigued with teaching and I always loved teaching. Before I went back and did that, though, I thought, well, I better go volunteer at the school first and just make sure this teaching thing is really what I want to do. And so I volunteered teaching the upperclassmen creative writing. And what I noticed immediately on day one was that there were quite a few, almost half the class, in fact, who were not reading or writing on grade level. So that set me on a whole new path. I started the Literacy Council of Highlands to help these students. And what happened was this nonprofit just took off, and I'm proud to say I founded it in '93. It is still very much a viable and very important part of the community. And that was my first chance to understand what the nonprofit leadership world was all about, how to craft services, how to train volunteers, how to raise money, how to write grants, all of those things. And that led me into my second leadership position with a nonprofit, which was working as the executive director for the Community Service Center in Highlands, which housed 17 nonprofit, for profit, and county organizations under one roof. So
Hmm.
my experience in the nonprofit world was kind of trial by fire, but I really loved it. It was a beautiful way to give back to the community that I love so much, and also just take a wild adventure ride into a frontier that I knew absolutely nothing about.
No, that makes perfect sense. Sounds like it was a good journey. Now, I think it was during or somewhere during this period of time, you also got into traveling for a period of time to London and coming back to the U.S. And so, kind of how did that all transpire, take place?
So I got to London through my experience in publishing in Boston, actually, because the publishing company that I worked for was a UK-based publisher, and they were in the process of being acquired by another publisher, HarperCollins. So back then, as it is true today, you had to have a very specific reason for being hired if you were from America. To get a work permit was pretty tricky, but because it was the list and the authors and the editors that I had been working with already, I could make the case that no one else in the UK could do that job. So I got to HarperCollins and was hired as their production editor in their academic division, and that was incredibly fun. Incredibly fun. So to work with a UK team and to be immersed in that culture, and that was incredibly rewarding. It wasn't until really the list was sold yet again, and I started to go, I think this publishing world is a little bit too heartbreaking for me because I could see the sort of traumatic impact that it was having on the authors and the editors who are working so hard on these books, and then all of a sudden there was another disruption. So I moved back to the mountains to kind of restart, and that's how I ventured into the nonprofit world.
No, that makes sense. So now you come back to, okay, hey, you had that as a good opportunity, great period of time. Sounds like it was a fun experience. Now you come back to the U.S. and I think you did kind of that nonprofit work before you took a bit of a break to start the family and to kind of go down that route for a period of time. Is that right?
That is correct. I was at the nonprofit center until 2 days before my son was born, and then I stayed home with him for a couple of years.
So now and so it makes sense. Sounds like, always a great time to take a break, have or some time with the family and kick that off. Now you did that, or you took that break for a couple of years. Kind of what drove you back into to the working world or how did you kind of re-engage on that part of the journey?
We were purchasing old homes or homes that were in great need of repair or renovation. And my husband at the time was a contractor. And so it was just a really kind of fun project for us to get these places and turn them into little jewel boxes and sell them. And I wanted to understand the contracts that I was signing because I was investing in these properties and signing these, 8-page contracts, and I didn't understand the world of real estate law at all. So I thought, I'll just get my license to be a smarter bear, smarter investor. And I loved the coursework. I became a licensed broker, and within a few days of getting my license, I had a client just kind of land in my lap. And I thought, well, okay, well, I guess I'll take them out and show them property. And it was a hoot of a day. Totally loved it. Discovered I had a complete knack for it and sold them a property that was actually one of our listings, which, as you probably know, that means you get twice the commission. And at the end of the process, I was looking at this check, this commission check, and thinking it would take me many a month in the nonprofit world to earn what I just earned from this one sale. So I just kind of jumped into real estate sales with both feet and just really loved it. It was a beautiful way to be an ambassador for the community that I love so much, teaching people, all the secret, beautiful places to go visit and all the fun things to do that maybe not sort of the classic tourist would discover, and helping them purchase a home, purchase land to build a dream home, and just get connected into a whole new lifestyle. It was fun. It was challenging. It was incredibly lucrative. And so real estate was just a really interesting, I never in a million years expected to love it as much as I did. So it led me to the this brink of this break of my life, which was my nuclear winter period, which started in 2008 when the markets crashed. And because we were a real estate and contractor family, we were hit, doubly hard. And so we ended up in a financial mess. My health declined, the marriage ended, and I needed to find a way to navigate out of the hell that I was in. And that's what kind of set me on this path of discovering the power of tapping into our innate creativity and redesigning my life and my work as a result of that process. And if you had said to me in 2008 when the markets crashed, hey, you're going to change your whole life and you're going to have a new enterprise and you're going to write a book and travel the world again, and I would just have laughed you out of the room. So it was really an interesting, that period of time wasn't a fun time, but I'm so grateful for it.
So now with that, you said, you kind of made that shift and, or the real estate market crashes, everything kind of bottom falls out and you have to kind of reassess along with, marriage going sideways and some, getting hit on a number of fronts with life. Now, how did you kind of land on, because I think it was kind of coaching and getting into going a bit of a different direction than sounds like you had done previously, kind of what sparked that, or kind of how did you figure out that was the next direction or kind of where you wanted to focus?
I decided in 2005 that I really missed the community and academic rigor of being in school. And I decided I'd go back and get my master's in entrepreneurship. And that process led me to um, understanding the Palo Alto design firm called IDEO, which was presented to us in an innovation and creativity class. And that moment, it was just like the moment when I took my first anthropology class. My head just about exploded. I was so excited. I wanted from that moment to know absolutely everything I could get my hands on with regard to innovation and creativity. It just broke me open in such a delightful way. And I was so excited. So I started doing a lot of research. I started working as a consultant on the side with nonprofits and for profits. And I was bringing in the lessons of the research that I was learning as a result of doing all this work. and started the first iteration of the Innovation and Creativity Institute. And then when my nuclear winter period arrived, I became licensed as a coach by Dr. Martha Beck, who is New York Times bestselling author and Oprah's coach, as a matter of fact. So I had this second certification, I had this experience, and then I had my own journey tapping into my creativity, began taking lessons in painting and sketching, and discovered the final piece of the puzzle was that I could take the intellectual, theoretical part of the research, the coaching element, and then my own creative rebels voyage through my own discovery of my creativity and how that shapes our experience of how we think, how we live, how we move in the world, our willingness to take bold action, and have energy levels that were unlike anything I had ever experienced in my life. So it
Mm.
all kind of came together. And at the same time, I was building the Innovation and Creativity Institute and going on this creative journey. In the middle of the Great Recession, I launched a real estate company. And because I could see that the market was shifting, and I knew that I could build wealth through real estate while I continued to develop, I was on this sort of quest for creativity. And I needed more runway to figure it out and to experience it and really put all the pieces together. So I opened a real estate company. Within 3 years, I was completely out of debt. We were one of the top producing firms in the community, and I opened in 2011. In 2018, I sold the firm to some people I handpicked in a very lucrative, mutually beneficial deal.
Mm.
And that gave me that runway that I needed to complete the work for launching the advanced version of the Innovation and Creativity Institute and the time to write my book, Buoyant. So, real estate has always been a wonderful magic carpet ride for me. I have the greatest amount of respect for the industry, and I'm still doing real estate today, but just a tiny bit. I have a new company, but I don't have an office. I don't have agents. I'm just very lean and mean, and I get to do just the aspects of the kinds of deals that are most appealing with sort of my handpicked clients.
No, it sounds like it's been a great path and journey now. Kind of follow up to that. So you wrote a book, you got into coaching, you stayed real estate. Kind of how did you balance that, or what was kind of the focus? Was it, hey, we're one is going to feed the other, or these are or working in tandem or in parallel, or kind of what was that path? Or it was just, hey, I need to balance things out with the shifts in the market, and so whatever can generate the income will be where I focus on, or kind of how did you put or mesh those things together to make it all work?
It was a kind of an ongoing testing environment because I knew if you're going to be great at taking care of your real estate clients, you have to be all in. So you can't kind of, sort of do a deal. You have to be in it 150%. So I began to take fewer deals personally. I would refer deals out, and that way I didn't have too much of a load, too much responsibility that wouldn't enable me to continue working with the Institute and developing my coaching framework. So it was kind of like one of these um, motions where I was doing more creativity work, more coaching, less and less real estate. And it was kind of a challenge around 2000, late 2016. I could tell the next move for me would be to sell the enterprise. And I was terrified because real estate was again my magic carpet, and I'm like, how am I going to just do this? Plus, I didn't want to disrupt the office. I didn't want to disrupt the agents. So, I went about it in a very methodical, strategic, slow fashion and took excellent care of the agents and our clients and made sure everything was drama free, ship shape, organized, calm. And but it took about really 18 months or so to really think it through and then activate my plan to have an exit.
No, that makes perfect sense. So now, kind of with all that in mind, catch yourself kind of where things are at today. You touched on it a bit, but kind of where's the business at? And said you have run a lean team, you're doing books, you're still doing coaching, and kind of with the catching us up, also a little bit where are things headed? Kind of what's the next 6, 12 months look like for you?
So I work with entrepreneurs and visionary leaders who are painfully stuck and riddled with self-doubt, and I help them tap into their innate creativity, as well as home in on who they truly are and just explode their entrepreneurial potential. And I do that work with private clients. I also have VIP clients, which is a deeper experience. Sometimes it can be here in Highlands, could be in Paris, could be wherever the client wants to have the experience. I do group coaching. I have master classes that I create and teach. I do workshops. And I also have a coaching certification program for people who are coaches and consultants who want to be trained in the buoyant principles and move that into and blend it with their work. And it has turned out to be a fascinating thing to witness how these incredible professionals, whether they're from the medical world, the environmental world, the um, financial world, how they're taking what they do as a professional and they're expanding it to include principles of creativity and all the things that I teach. So it is morphing into this incredibly interesting series of concentric circles of impact in the world in ways that I have dreamed about but never, anticipated it would be like this. And that is really gratifying to be able to see lots of people putting these principles into action in pockets that I would have never been able to reach. So I also have a podcast that is a series of short form episodes. I do one a week. It is a little sort of morsel of inspiration. Sometimes I'll have exercises for people to do, but it's just a microsode. They run anywhere from 4 to 6, 7 minutes. And that podcast is called The Courage to Live a Big Life. I started getting the inklings for book number 2, which is going to have something to do with the nexus of courage and creativity. I'm still mapping out my general through lines and structure for the book, but that's sort of generally, in a broad sense, what my focus will be.
Oh, that's awesome. Sounds like it'll be a fun opportunity and a great experience. So it'll certainly be fun to see how that continues to play out for you. So, well, now as we've kind of reached the present day of the journey and even looking a bit to where things are headed, great time to transition to the 2 questions I always like to ask at the end of each episode. So the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
So my biggest mistake was not hiring an operations manager fast enough for my real estate enterprise. I went through a process to analyze the tasks that I was doing and whether or not they lifted my energy or drained it. And I could see on a piece of paper that I was spending 80% of my time doing stuff that I wasn't good at and or didn't like to do. And the things that I loved to do were the things that made money and lots of it. And it were the higher level skills like negotiating a deal or selling this or bringing on a new client, whatever it is. Those are the things that I really love to do that come naturally to me. And I could see that I was spending so much time in administrative and operational stuff that it was prohibiting me spending enough time in the things that I love doing that brought my energy up and made the business money. So I brought on an operational manager. They took over all the stuff that that was sucking all my energy and time. And I went from working 7 days a week to working 4 days a week and quadrupling my revenue in 6 months. So if anyone out there is thinking, gee, what is the quickest path to more revenue and a better life? Hiring hiring for those systems that you need to take you out of that operational day-to-day quagmire. The faster you can get to that point, even if you start, and I started part-time because I didn't have yet the amount of revenue to pay somebody full-time. So I just had somebody part-time, and that was perfect. And then I could slowly increase her time to where she was full-time. And then eventually she started getting bonuses off of everything that I closed. So hire much faster than you think.
No, I think that's definitely, it's one where it's a balance. You hire too quickly, then sometimes you're taking on, more obligation than you can, or the business can, reasonably handle. And yet on the other hand, if you hold off and wait too long, then you're limiting the business or otherwise not being able to deliver on the services or the products that you're offering. And so it's always that balance. So I think it's an easy area to make a mistake, but also a great one to learn from. Second question now that I'd like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb you'd recommend?
I would say to ignore the prevalent messaging in the business literature and culture, which is to hack your time or become more productive, or manage your time, and instead focus on managing your energy. When I made that shift, my life changed dramatically. And we are walking around sort of almost critically exhausted. Many people are burned out. Many people are under so much overwhelm and stress. And the sort of tonic for all of that is to stop trying to overdo and overachieve and instead focus on what I need to do to plug the drains of the bucket of my energy. And what does that look like? And how do I then bring more energy in? How can I at will dial my energy way up? And so I have a process that I go over in my book that I can share very quickly. It is a two-part formula. The first part is to really get great at remembering what brings us alive. For most of us, when life got busy, we stopped doing those things. And so bringing those things back very intentionally, doing what brings us alive, whether that's being in nature, surrounding ourselves with beauty, experiencing art, being with those we love, whatever that is for us, bring it back and literally breathe it in, inspiring ourselves. Now we have more energy and willingness to do harder things. And the second phase of the process is doing what I call the 5 M's. And I'll go over
Just
three
yeah,
of
just
these.
why don't
Just
or probably just to give a snippet, yeah, we won't necessarily we'll have we have the Fall One podcast, which is the inventive expert. So it'll give
yeah,
an opportunity when we have you back on to dive into those mostly. This is more just kind of a quick snippet, is a kind of a rule of
sure.
thumb. So maybe if you want to wrap it up or kind of summarize what those would be in one takeaway rule of thumb, that would be great.
So I will just say bring your energy back up by remembering what brings you alive and do more. And then be mindful of having some time where you are doing a daily practice that enhances your ability to think more clearly and take more bold action. And if you're interested in learning more about those, we'll have a different discussion another time. But it is
Absolutely.
a wonderful way for us as entrepreneurs, especially when we're getting started, to start ourselves off on the right foot by focusing on energy.
Awesome. No, I think that's definitely a great rule of thumb, a great takeaway, and it will be fun in the future to have you back onto our sister podcast to dive into that deeper as well. But now, as we do wrap up today's episode, you touched on a little bit, but if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
My website is innovation and creativity institute.com. You can connect with me on all social platforms through the website. You can also sign up for an entrepreneurial toolkit, which is free. And that's an easy way to get started to get on this path for transformation.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, make a new, or expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be guests on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveunicorn.com to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Susie, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much.